Hi, I'm Wayne O'Keefe, and I just want to talk a little bit about float fishing, but not any kind of float fishing. It's float fishing with a pole. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll notice I have fished with a pole before, but what I particularly like is one of the techniques that I've seen used in Taiwan and China, where they use poles like this. So this is a telescopic pole. It's graphite, very, very light. And it goes out, this one goes to about 4.5 meters, but I've got one that goes out to 7 meters, so I can get quite long. Got a nice little sort of rough handle there for holding, and it's meant to be held with the hand having a long forked rod holder that actually extends and is connected to a pier or a jetty that you're sitting on. So it actually holds that in place. You can actually put this down on the rod holder. And the people who use it, and in Japan where they hera fish, hera being a type of carp, where they fish for those things, they use these same techniques. The thing about this particular pole, at the end of it, the very tip, you can see it's very, very fine, but they're very, very strong. Now they've got quite a bit, they're able to take quite a bit of pressure and quite a bit of bend, even though they are graphite. At the end of the pole, it has a piece of, it's like string, but it's some sort of twine that's really quite strong with a knot in it. And what you do is you have a loop at the end of your fishing line, and you basically, by putting the right type of a knot in it, you can put that over the top of the line and it catches at the knot, and then it's very easy to undo. So the way that they're attaching their line to these things is just simply by effectively tying it to the tip of that pole. So that's the pole, and then there's the other gear that is associated with the pole fishing that we do, and I'll just go through those now. Now, the types of floats that are used are quite interesting. They're very, very fine. I'll just show you. I mean, you have them in little tubes like this to protect them, and the float, as you'll see, very, very light, has a long stem on it, and it's got different colors in there, and they're segregated by black lines, and there's a reason for that. And these things come in different sizes. I mean, they come down to very, very fine stuff like this, depending on the type of fish you're going for. And the reason for the stem with the different colors on it is, what happens is when they put this into the water, they have dissolving bait on their hooks, and that bait is a paste that they make up, and it dissolves, it becomes their burley. As it dissolves, it's sending off flavors into the water which will attract the fish. What happens is, when they cast in, the float will go down, the weight of the actual bait, the dissolving bait, will take the float down, and then as it dissolves, it comes up through the water, and more of the color is identified. But it gets to a point where it stops, and they know how many different colors there are before it actually gets to the point in the water where the weight, there's a little bit of weight held on these things to keep them upright like this. Holding the weight, and hooks with no bait on them will hold at a specific position in the water. If it goes beyond that, they know that a fish has picked it up and has lifted it. If it goes under, they know that the fish has pulled it away. But if it stays at that point, they know then that there's no bait left. So when they cast in, these things, they'll lie flat first, then they'll right themselves as the bait starts to fall towards the bottom. As it's got the weight of the dissolving bait, that actually goes down in the water. And then over time, just in a couple of minutes, they see it actually rising as it all dissolves, and then it stops at that point. And then if it goes further or goes down deeper, they know there's a fish there. It works very, very well. Now, the way the floats are kept on the line is they have a little rubber stopper that joins to the base of the float. That little rubber stopper has a hole in it, and the line goes through that. So you can just pull those things off. They come off the base, and you can change these. These are different sizes for different sized floats. So the way they make them is they don't put any holes in here for the line. This is just a float with no connection to the line, and then they just put these little rubber stoppers on, and that's what the line goes through. So what happens is they've got the little rubber stopper here. It's got line that goes through the hole, and to keep that in place, they use these little line stops. Now these are quite amazing. They're a little tiny bubble of rubber on a piece of wire. And the piece of wire has a loop at the end. All you do is you put your line through that loop, you pull it through, and then you actually slide these off onto the line. And it's stuck on the line. And that is a stopper. So they put a couple of those on to hold the floats in place. And so there would be one on one side, one on the other side. This is held nicely in place. So you've got the line coming through here and a stopper on each side. Now the weight that is used, so the sinker that they use is interesting, because what happens is they use this is lead. It's lead strip, very, very fine lead strip. So what they'll do is they'll cut a piece of this off. It's very easy to cut with a pair of scissors. As you can see, it's wafer thin. And they'll roll that onto the line. So that then they'll roll it on and pinch it onto the line. That becomes their sinker. So you've got the float up here, line going down, and they fish near the bottom most of the time. So it's quite a bit of line going down. They'll have this lead wrapped around the line as their sinker. Very easy to use, just comes in strips like that. And so minor adjustments can be made by putting little bits on, or just cutting a piece off to make sure that the float presents itself perfectly in the water. And finally, the way that the hooks are set up is quite interesting. They have these hook setups, usually 2 hooks, and as you can see there's a little bit of a boom there, or it's actually a plastic fork. So they've got line going through and it sections off and holds 2 hooks. So you've got a fork there where it comes across and holds those 2 hooks. And at the back of it, you've got a loop. So all they do is tie this, they usually put a loop-to-loop connection, or just tie it directly to their main line. And then you have 2 hooks in place, and they're very small hooks, as you can see. And they put a little bit of that dough bait on those hooks, both of them. And as they put their rod in the water, or put the float in the water, it'll actually, say in a river, it'll actually float downstream. Little tiny pieces of the paste will travel downstream and attract the fish up. And the one thing about a float is it is so gentle, and it's carrying so little weight that the tiniest bit of pressure on it by a fish shows that bait go, or makes that float go up or down. And that is really important, because on its day, nothing beats the sensitivity of a well-presented float. And that's why some of our Asian anglers are so successful in catching fish. And I'll show you just some of the people I've seen fishing locally and how well they've done. This is the rig. There's a bit of weight there, down to a couple of very small hooks and a paste bait on the end. Out to a long pole with a float on it, and it's just plopped in and it just floats down. Put the bait on and just flick that. And then just leave it there, and what happens is the paste bait, oh, there's a dip, so the paste bait is giving off its scents and everything like that, and the fish then come in and it acts as its burley as well as its own bait. and it's lifting now, so, and going under. Oops, missed it. Okay. And so here's the result. A little mullet. Yep, on that gear, very gentle floats, works very well. And have a look at this also. There's a rod holder that is being bolted on. It's actually fitted on into the plastic tackle bucket. So it's a great rod rest for putting the pole on. And then there's that paste plate that they're using. You just flick it out there. And same thing, so watch that, watch the float as it goes along. And so if it suddenly dips, you'll know that there's a fish on it. Very effective. Now there's quite a few fish there. Very good. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and look for any of the gear that you're interested in, any of the fishing techniques that you're seeing. Go to my website, howtofish.com.au. There's a blog, there's plenty of information on float fishing and all other types of fishing that I do.